Welcome to Sports from the Couch
I gotta say, it's the stupidest thing in sports.
with your host, Mike Mercado.
Players cannot stand him. Coaches cannot stand him. Most importantly, the fans can't stand him.
Brought to you by Mercado Airwaves.
I'm gonna say it once, and hopefully I'm wrong, but it's a disaster waiting to happen.
That is so bad, that is absolutely brutal.
Hello and welcome in, friends, to another edition of Sports from the Couch here on Mercado Airwaves. I'm your host, Mike Mercado. I want to thank you so much for making us a part of your day. It is Monday night, November 16, 2020, in the chilly, beautiful city of Chicago. I hope each and every one of you is having a wonderful day. And before we get to Monday Night Football between the Chicago Bears and the Minnesota Vikings and some rumors in the NBA, we have to take care of some housekeeping notes. You can follow us all over the universe. We're on Twitter at Mike M Media. I'm on Instagram at Mike Mercado Media. And the show is on Twitter at Couch Sports Talk. You could like, rate, review, and share us. Leave a comment wherever you get your favorite podcast at Mercado Airwaves. You can become a producer of the show at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves, a home to our interviews, ad-free, and before anybody else with athletes and celebrities at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves. We have swag just in time for the holiday season at teespring.com/Mercado Airwaves. You could subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/Mercado Airwaves Network. Like us on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves, and keep up to date with everything we're doing on the network on all the other shows, from true crime and pop culture and interviews with athletes and celebrities at Twitter at Mercado Airwaves. So we start off this Monday edition of Sports from the Couch for Monday Night Football as the Chicago Bears take on the Minnesota Vikings. And an interesting matchup for both of these teams who desperately are looking to keep up with the Green Bay Packers. And I guess the first thing that we're going to start off with today is kind of how we're feeling about both of these teams heading into this matchup. And for the Vikings coming in at 3-5, for the Bears coming in at 5-4. In the last 2 weeks, you've had the Bears who have lost 3 straight, who have been in a tough position this year with the offensive line, injuries, and COVID-19. That's everybody in the National Football League. The Vikings have found the fountain of youth. They've won 2 straight. They're at 3-5, and Dalvin Cook has gone absolutely insane. He's gone God mode in the last, 2 weeks. He's had 478 scrimmage yards and 6 touchdowns. He was back-to-back NFC Offensive Player of the Week. His 369 rushing yards over the past 2 weeks are the most in a 2-game stretch by a player in franchise history. And for the Chicago Bears, I guess the silver lining is that they kept Derrick Henry pretty much in check last week, and they're going against Kirk Cousins, who is 0 for 9 on Monday Night Football. So a lot of different storylines in this matchup. We could go kind of just as we do on normal weeks when we get to do a special edition of the show where it's a later game. I guess just by phases of the game. Defensively speaking, we know the Bears have the advantage. We know offensively speaking, Minnesota probably has the advantage, even though I still believe Chicago is a better team this season than Minnesota. Have they played like a better team? Not as of late. But it's the same thing, the same narrative the Chicago Bears team has had all season long, and it's the same thing Nick Foles has had his entire career. It depends on what part of the streak that they are on. Right now, they are the Don Trout of this streak for Nick Foles. But if on Monday Night Football, they are able to swarm the box against Dalvin Cook, make Kirk Cousins try to beat this defense, Nick Foles can get right, and the Bears can win this matchup pretty easily, I believe. But don't get it twisted for 1 second. If Dalvin Cook starts to chip away at this defense, if Nick Foles and this offense can't put up any yards in this game, Dalvin Cook will eventually get to his weapons, and he eventually will beat this team. That is the truth about what you're seeing right now, this Bears team. All in all, is can you tire them out? Can you stay in the game long enough to eventually just overwhelm them, and that defense has no choice but to give up points? And it is the worst kind of way when you're playing against a team like Minnesota or like a Tennessee or at certain points like New Orleans when they don't have all their wide receivers. It's a death by paper cut over and over again. They're just going to keep giving it to your running back. They're going to run it right down your throat. And by the time you've known that you've had, half of the same amount of time of possession, you're 3 and out, and this team has put up 21 points on you. That is worst case scenario for this Chicago Bears team. But if this offense does not wake up, if Bill Lazor now, you're going to be here to save the day as the new play caller. If Matt Nagy can't get these mistakes done when it comes to penalties and not knowing the play and running out of time, they're going to get blown out here on Monday Night Football. This is a big game. I heard somebody say it on Chicago Sports Radio this afternoon. This is a playoff game, and it really is for both of these teams. The Packers at 7-2. They don't look great, but they're 7-2. You can't take away their record. The Lions are at 4-5. They're just waiting to be put out of their misery, especially if Matthew Stafford is hurt. Minnesota tried to let you bury them, and you couldn't do it. This division has been set up for the Bears to take, and for quite that matter, for Aaron Rodgers to take, which he is doing. But there is no excuse on Monday Night Football in mid-November in 2020 that these two teams should not be playing their best, and specifically the Chicago Bears should not be playing their best football in Chicago. We will find out a lot about the guys on this roster. I'm not saying that they can win a Super Bowl, and this is what's frustrating about this NFL season. Just go into the National Football, the NFC in the NFL. You're looking at one of the worst divisions in the NFC East, where you have the Eagles in first place at 3-5 with the tie, the Giants at 3-7. The NFC West is eating itself with the Cardinals at 6-3, the Rams at 6-3, the Seahawks at 6-3, the Niners at 4-6, and they have all the injuries, and they have the curse of coming off of being a runner-up in the Super Bowl. The Saints at 7-2, Tampa Bay at 7-3, and then you have the Falcons and Panthers on the basement, 3-6, 3-7, respectively. But the Saints and the Buccaneers have lost to teams, haven't beaten teams in the NFC North. The Bears have beaten some of these teams and lost to some of these teams. There is no clear-cut favorite in the NFC. 1 week, Tom Brady is the MVP, and he can never age, and the Patriots are stupid for getting rid of him. Then the next week, he needs to retire. Drew Brees has broken ribs right now. And now it's on to Jameis Winston, who I think it's an okay quarterback. I think this was the best position for Jameis to land. Now you're counting on him. That is what's frustrating about this Bears season. What frustrates people about possibly going 8-8, 7-9, 9-7, and missing the playoffs, even though there's a chance of that. We have that next edition of playoff teams, according to the front office in the National Football League. It's for the taking. I'm not saying you'll beat Baltimore, who lost to New England, so it's not like they're unbeatable. It's not like Kansas City, who we've seen Kansas City be in some tough matchups. I'm not saying that they're going to beat these teams, but there is no doubt in my mind that if you ever want to be in that lottery, if you want to be in that race, if you want to bite at the apple, like we say every year in every sport, all you want is one bite at it. It's right now in the NFC. And the frustration of having a Super Bowl defense, but an inept offense that literally looks broken, looks out of place in this National Football League, spotlights how huge this is tonight on Monday Night Football. Once again, everybody will be watching. Once again, you have the stage. You're going against a rival team. You're going against a team that is looking to get right back into this race. The national narrative, the national media who controls this narrative, you have a chance to make good on all of it, feel good on all of it, have positive momentum and energy if you do what you're supposed to. This team needs to play clean football. They do not have this gap of error. They're not allowed it. They cannot make mistakes and expect to win games. They don't have enough talent to do so. They don't have enough skill players to nullify those mistakes. But if they play a clean football game, if Nick Foles is on the up track of his momentum, of his streak, if this offensive line could make any type of movement on the line of scrimmage, this Bears team should win. But if they mess around, if they play sloppy football, if they let Dalvin Cook control whatever that defense swarm is going to be, that they're going to pack the box. They're going to swarm it with, 7 guys. Then Minnesota wins this one. I have picked Chicago to win this matchup on Monday Night Football. But there shouldn't be as much uncertainty about this game. Not with how the season started, not with how good this defense is. It doesn't make any sense to me that we are at this point of the year. Although, to be fair, I did say that they were going to finish 500, so I'm not surprised. But the way the season started, and we know how much pressure is on this front office, it's interesting to see how they respond now with everything, with the spotlight, with them needing to. But with that said, let me know, what do you think? How does this game end up? How does the rest of the Bears season look? How does the NFC shake out as we get closer and closer to the playoffs? Will the new play calling from Bill Lazor be enough for the Chicago Bears to put up some points? Can it change this broken offense? We will find out. But let me know your thoughts on Twitter at Mike M Media, Instagram, Mike Mercado Media, and the show's on Twitter at Couch Sports Talk. We have some interesting news from the NBA as the offseason has started, and Adrian Wojnarowski was the one who dropped it, a Woj bomb, in November as the Phoenix Suns agree in principle to acquire Chris Paul from the Oklahoma City Thunder, and there is going to be a lot of moving parts. The deal sends Paul and Abdel Nader Suns for Kelly Oubre Jr., Ricky Rubio, Ty Jerome, and Jalen Lecque. Hopefully I'm pronouncing these names right. If I'm not, whatever, listen to Woj on ESPN. And a 2022 first-round pick. But the big thing is Devin Booker gets a running mate, a superstar teammate in Chris Paul, and some other trade rumors going around. It's James Harden in works for a trade between the Nets and the Rockets so that he can reunite with Kevin Durant and play alongside Kyrie Irving. The NBA getting hot and heavy. So where are we at? How are we feeling about this? We know Anthony Davis has opted out of the deal, so he can sign a max deal. Probably going to end up right next to LeBron once again in Los Angeles. We see what's going on with the Clippers. And there's some very young, interesting teams in Denver, in Utah, and Toronto, and Boston, Miami. Interesting, they're going to see what Giannis Antetokounmpo does next season. So Philadelphia has all their craziness going on. A lot of interesting stuff in the NBA, and we know we're about a month away from tip-off of the next NBA season. So how do we feel about this? I mean, for Devin Booker, I think this is the best thing because he has a true star he can play next to. He's got a guy he's gonna learn from. And I've always been really hard on Chris Paul because I've always expected greatness from him. And, I've always given him a hard time because I've expected championships from him. And I understand that that's hard and it's not just on him. But he did show himself. And he did really establish his legacy and stamp his legacy when it came to what he did in OKC. And making that team a playoff team, a contender, a real interesting team that never gave up. And him bringing that to Phoenix is going to be really fun to see. It's going to be fun to see Devin Booker play alongside a Hall of Famer and how that develops that young man. That is one of the young superstars in this league that nobody was talking about until the bubble. So really fun stuff in Phoenix. And that's a good place for Chris Paul too. It's a place where he could be a little bit under the radar. But there's still going to be enough flavor and sauce for them. They'll be on national TV every once in a while. I think that's a really good spot for Chris Paul at this point of his career. And super excited to see how much we see the developments and more of a development of Devin Booker, who I'm a huge fan of. And when it comes to James Harden, I mean, they're all superstars. So can it work? Sure. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen with Mike D'Antoni and Steve Nash and the coaching staff and just the way the mentality of Kyrie and KD are. Obviously these are two of the top tier players in the league, Hall of Famers, NBA champions, so they get a lot of leeway, understandably so. They get a voice in this process, understandably so. But if you bring in James Harden and you're trying to make this entire thing work for as long as you're trying to work, these aren't a bunch of 23-year-olds. These are veterans who have been around the block, have been to NBA finals, have won MVPs, whose bodies have broken down at other points. I don't know how much you want to bank on that in the Eastern Conference right now. That is trying to get younger, that's getting more athletic, that it's just evolving into a different game. I'm really fascinated to see, and we're going to learn a lot. this coming up weekend, the NBA draft, and we will be doing a reaction to this NBA draft with the Chicago Bulls at the 4th pick. But you're seeing what the Nets are doing. We're seeing how people want to make these trades, whether or not they want to invest their draft picks. So we'll find out. We'll know a lot in the next 48 hours who's going where. But some interesting news in the NBA. Chris Paul is now a Phoenix Sun, and James Harden might be heading to Brooklyn to play with Kyrie and KD. We also had ourselves a green jacket winner. That is right, in the Masters. Dustin Johnson wins the Masters in November. Tiger Woods giving him the jacket in the ceremony. Obviously, I'm not the biggest of experts in golf, but Augusta looked nice. It was nice to see some green and golf being played in November, some high-stakes golf in November, especially here in Chicago where the weather is getting nasty. So anytime you get a little bit of a tease of nice weather, that is some fun stuff. I wonder if the ratings are going to be good. Just simply fact that Tiger Woods was in it. His name was in contention. A lot of names that people like, a lot of niche guys that people have really hitched themselves onto. So I want to see if they had some good ratings, but Dustin Johnson looked like a machine out there. Had some hiccups, but man, you talk about the effect of Tiger Woods in golf, and not just in sports, but specifically in his sports, that these guys are just so good, and they just drive the hell out of the ball, and if they're making their putts, there's nothing that stops these guys. So really fun stuff this weekend, an awesome sports weekend, right? I mean, just a bunch of football and golf and just fun times. And even though there's a lot of craziness still in the news, it just seems like you're able to enjoy it a little bit more nowadays. So I'm super excited that we were able to get so much fun out of it and some more fun this coming up weekend. But shout out to Dustin Johnson, the 2020 Masters champion. Enjoy that green jacket. But that'll do it for us on this edition of Sports from the Couch here on Mercado Airwaves. Thank you so much for making us a part of your day. It is almost kickoff time for the Vikings and the Bears on Monday Night Football. So hopefully you guys are all relaxed, comfy, got some good food, some good company, socially distanced, wearing a mask, and hopefully just your bubble and enjoying this game. You can follow me all over the universe. I'm on Twitter at MikeMedia, Instagram, Mike Mercado Media. The show's on Twitter at Couch Sports Talk. Like, rate, review, and shares wherever you get your favorite podcast at Mercado Airwaves. Become a producer of the show at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves. We have swag at teespring.com/Mercado Airwaves. You can subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/Mercado Airwaves Network. Like us on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. Play video games with us on Twitch, twitch.tv/Mercado Airwaves. And keep up to date with everything we're doing on the podcast network, all our shows, all our interviews on Twitter at Mercado Airwaves. Please enjoy all the games. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other. We will see you next time here on Sports from the Couch on the Mercado Airwaves Network. I'm Mike Mercado.